The automatic doors of Mercy General slid open with their usual pneumatic hiss, but something cut through the Monday morning noise like a scalpel through skin. Silence. Not total, not suddenly, but spreading, one person at a time, noticing, stopping, staring. A German shepherd stood in the entrance, dry, clean, perfectly still. No leash dangling, no frantic owner running behind, no blood, no injury, no obvious emergency. Just a dog, standing there, waiting. Nurse Alina White looked up from the medication cart, her pen hovering mid-signature. The dog's coat caught the fluorescent light, dark sable, well-groomed, the kind you'd see at a training facility or walking calmly beside a uniform. His ears were forward, alert but not alarmed. His posture was deliberate. The security guard moved toward him, radio already halfway to his mouth. The dog didn't react, didn't back up, didn't growl, didn't even shift his weight. He just looked. Not at the guard, not at the nurses clustering near the desk, not at the patients in the waiting room craning their necks to see. He was looking past them, through the reception area, through the double doors leading to triage, through the entire architecture of protocol and procedure that separated the lobby from the real work of saving lives. "Whose dog is that?" someone asked. No one answered. The German shepherd took one step forward, smooth, controlled, purposeful, then another. His nails clicked on the linoleum, tick, 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 each step a metronome counting down to something no one could see yet. Dr. Nico Johnston emerged from Bay 3, stripping off gloves, exhaustion written in the slump of his shoulders. He stopped mid-stride when he saw the dog. His jaw tightened. "Someone get that animal out of here before—" The dog's head swiveled toward him. Their eyes met, and Nico felt it. That primitive thing beneath medicine and training and years of clinical detachment. The thing that makes the hair on your neck stand up when you're being watched by something that knows. The dog's gaze slid away from him, returning to that fixed point beyond the desk. "He's tracking something," Alina heard herself say. The words came out before she could stop them, before she could second-guess, before the memory of Mrs. Chen's flatline 3 weeks ago could make her doubt her instincts again. "He's tracking something," she repeated, louder this time. Nico's eyes snapped to her. "It's a dog, White, a lost dog. Call animal control." But Alina was already moving around the desk, her sneakers silent on the tile. She crouched low, the way her brother had taught her when they were kids, and their own German shepherd would alert to storms before the first cloud appeared. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. "What do you see?" The dog's ear twitched toward her voice. Acknowledgement. But he didn't look at her. Didn't wag, didn't whine, didn't break focus. His breathing was steady, controlled. The breathing of a dog on a mission. And then he did something that made Alina's stomach drop. He sat, right there in the middle of the emergency department entrance. Perfectly still, perfectly patient, waiting for them to understand. The security guard's radio crackled. Should I call this in? But Alina was staring at the dog's eyes now, dark, intelligent, unwavering. She'd seen that look before. In the mirror, in her own reflection the night Mrs. Chen died, when she'd noticed the subtle change in breathing pattern but hadn't trusted enough to speak up. The dog wasn't lost. He was exactly where he needed to be. "Don't touch him," Alina said quietly. Nico moved closer, irritation sharpening his voice. "White, we have actual patients." "Then let's find out which one he's here for." The words hung in the air, like a diagnosis. Because Hunter wasn't looking at the waiting room. He was looking at the triage board, at the list of names, room assignments, vital signs scrolling across the screen.
It's something everyone else had already decided was stable.
The automatic doors of Mercy General slid open with their usual pneumatic hiss, but something cut through the Monday morning noise like a scalpel through skin. Silence. Not total, not suddenly, but spreading, one person at a time noticing, stopping, staring. A German shepherd stood in the entrance, dry, clean, perfectly still. No leash dangling, no frantic owner running behind, no blood, no injury, no obvious emergency. Just a dog, standing there, waiting. Nurse Alina White looked up from the medication cart, her pen hovering mid-signature. The dog's coat caught the fluorescent light, dark sable, well-groomed, the kind you'd see at a training facility or walking calmly beside a uniform. His ears were forward, alert but not alarmed. His posture was deliberate. A security guard moved toward him, radio already halfway to his mouth. The dog didn't react, didn't back up, didn't growl, didn't even shift his weight. He just looked. Not at the guard, not at the nurses clustering near the desk, not at the patients in the waiting room craning their necks to see. He was looking past them, through the reception area, through the double doors leading to triage, through the entire architecture of protocol and procedure that separated the lobby from the real work of saving lives. "Whose dog is that?" someone asked. No one answered. The shepherd took one step forward, smooth, controlled, purposeful. Then another. His nails clicked on the linoleum. Tick, 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 tick. Each step a metronome counting down to something no one could see yet. Dr. Nico Johnston emerged from Bay 3, stripping off gloves, exhaustion written in the slump of his shoulders. He stopped mid-stride when he saw the dog. His jaw tightened. "Someone get that animal out of here before—" The dog's head swiveled toward him. Their eyes met, and Nico felt it. That primitive thing beneath medicine and training and years of clinical detachment. The thing that makes the hair on your neck stand up when you're being watched by something that knows. The dog's gaze slid away from him, returning to that fixed point beyond the desk. "He's tracking something," Alina heard herself say. The words came out before she could stop them, before she could second guess, before the memory of Mrs. Chen's flatline 3 weeks ago made her doubt her instincts again. "He's tracking something," she repeated louder this time. Nico's eyes snapped at her. "It's a dog, White. A lost dog. Call animal control." But Alina was already moving around the desk, her sneakers silent on the tile. She crouched low, the way her brother had taught her when they were kids, and their own German shepherd would alert to storms before the first cloud appeared. "Hey, buddy, what do you see?" she whispered. The dog's ear twitched toward her voice, acknowledgement, but he didn't look at her, didn't wag, didn't whine, didn't break focus. His breathing was steady, controlled, the breathing of a dog on a mission. And then he did something that made Alina's stomach drop. He sat, right there in the middle of the emergency department entrance, perfectly still, perfectly patient, waiting for them to understand. The security guard's radio crackled. "Should I call this in?" But Alina was staring at the dog's eyes now, dark, intelligent, unwavering. She'd seen that look before, in the mirror, in her own reflection, the night Mrs. Chen flatlined, when she'd noticed the subtle change in breathing pattern but hadn't trusted it enough to speak up. The dog wasn't lost. He was exactly where he needed to be. "Don't touch him," Alina said quietly. Nico moved closer, irritation sharpening his voice. "White, we have actual patients." "Then let's find out which one he's here for."
The lobby had gone from chaos to cathedral quiet. Even the pager tone seemed muted, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Hunter remained seated, statue still, his gaze fixed on the triage monitor mounted above the reception desk. The screen cycled through patient names, room assignments, vital signs in neat digital rows. Red flags for critical, yellow for stable, green for discharge pending. "He's staring at the board," whispered Jamie, the intake coordinator, her fingers frozen over her keyboard. Nico crossed his arms, his white coat crinkling. Dogs don't read monitors, Jamie. Then what's he looking at? No one had an answer. Alina rose slowly from her crouch, following Hunter's sightline. The dog's focus was laser precise, unwavering. Not the waiting room where a teenager clutched an ice pack to a swollen ankle, not the vending machines humming near the restrooms, not even the paramedics wheeling in an elderly man with chest pain, their voices urgent but controlled. Hunter's eyes tracked nothing but that screen. White. Nico's voice carried the edge of a man who'd worked 36 hours straight. We're not doing this. Security, please escort the animal outside. The guard, 23, still new enough to follow orders without question, reached for Hunter's collar. The dog's head turned, not aggressive, not even defensive, just aware. His eyes met Marcus's, and the young man's hand stopped mid-air like he'd hit an invisible wall. He's not going to hurt you, Alina said, though she wasn't entirely sure how she knew. Then he won't mind leaving, Nico shot back. Marcus's fingers brushed the dog's fur. Hunter stood in one fluid motion, muscles coiling beneath his coat, but he didn't move toward the door. He moved forward, 3 steps closer to the desk, closer to the monitor, his body angling to keep the screen in view. Then he sat again. Same posture, same focus, same inexplicable certainty. Jesus, Marcus breathed. It's like he's waiting for something. Dr. Sarah Chen emerged from the staff break room, coffee in hand, green reading glasses perched on her nose. She was Mercy General's senior attending, 20 years deep into emergency medicine, and she'd seen everything from heart attacks disguised as indigestion to psychiatric breaks that looked like strokes. She stopped when she saw the dog. "How long has he been here?" she asked. 4 minutes, Jamie said, checking the security timestamp. Walked in at 09:22. Sarah moved closer, studying Hunter with the same analytical precision she'd use on a patient presenting with ambiguous symptoms. She crouched beside Alina, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. He's not distressed. Respiration's normal, no visible injuries, no signs of neglect. She paused. But he's absolutely focused on something. The monitor refreshed. New vitals populated the screen. Room 7. Pulse ox 94%, BP 118/76, temp 98.4. Room 11, pulse ox 89%, BP 102/68, temp 99.1. Room 14, pulse ox 97%, BP 135/88, temp 98.6. Hunter's ear twitched. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Did you see that?" "What did you see?" Nico asked, impatience bleeding into skepticism. "When the numbers changed, he reacted. Dogs don't." "I know what I saw, Nico." Sarah stood, pulling her reading glasses down, squinting at the monitor. "Jamie, pull up the detailed vitals for all current patients, everything logged in the last hour." "Dr. Chen, with all respect, humor me." Jamie's fingers flew across the keyboard. Data flooded the secondary monitor. Timestamps, trends, incremental changes in heart rate and oxygen saturation that happened too slowly for alarms to trigger, but fast enough to show patterns. Hunter's gaze never wavered. And then Alina saw it. Room 11. The numbers were stable now, but 30 minutes ago there'd been a spike in heart rate, then a drop, then stabilization. The kind of fluctuation that gets noted in a chart, but doesn't scream emergency. "Room 11, Alina said quietly. Hunter's tail moved. Just once, a single, deliberate thump against the linoleum. Confirmation.
Room 11 housed a woman in her mid-50s, admitted 2 hours ago for what the paramedics had called a mild allergic reaction. Hives across her arms, slight swelling in her throat. She'd been given Benadryl and corticosteroids, monitored for 90 minutes, and cleared for discharge pending final paperwork. Alina pulled up the file on her tablet. Patricia Nguyen,
No significant medical history, no known drug allergies. She'd eaten lunch at a new Thai restaurant, felt her tongue tingle, called 911 out of caution. Textbook response, textbook treatment, textbook resolution. Except Hunter didn't think so. Alina's thumb hovered over the screen, scrolling through vitals. Everything looked normal now. Pulse ox steady at 96%, heart rate 78, blood pressure unremarkable. The last note, time-stamped 14 minutes ago, read, "Patient stable and comfortable, awaiting discharge instructions." But those earlier fluctuations nagged at her. Heart rate had spiked to 112, then dropped to 68, then climbed back to baseline. Oxygen saturation had dipped to 89 before recovering. The attending had noted it as transient variability consistent with stress response and medication effect. Reasonable explanation, logical conclusion. So why was her stomach twisting? "White," Nico's voice pulled her back. "You're not seriously suggesting we reevaluate a stable patient because a dog looked at a screen?" Alina met his eyes. 3 weeks ago, she would have backed down, would have nodded, apologized, retreated into the safety of protocol and hierarchy. But 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Chen was labeled stable too. Alina had noticed the subtle change in her breathing pattern, barely perceptible, easy to dismiss, and she'd stayed quiet, trusted the attending's assessment, deferred to experience. Mrs. Chen coded 20 minutes later. "I'm suggesting," she said carefully, "that we verify what we think we know." Sarah stood beside Hunter now, watching him with the intensity of a diagnostician examining an X-ray for fractures the radiologist might have missed. The dog hadn't moved, hadn't broken focus. His breathing remained controlled, but there was tension in his shoulders, a coiled readiness that reminded Alina of the way her brother's search and rescue dog would behave when he'd located someone buried under rubble. Alert, certain, waiting for humans to catch up. "What's his body language telling you?" Sarah asked quietly. Alina crouched again, studying Hunter from his perspective. His ears were forward, but not rigid. His tail was still, not tucked. His weight was balanced, not shifted back in fear or aggression. And his eyes, God, his eyes had that same desperate clarity she'd seen in family members when they knew something was wrong, but couldn't articulate why. "He's not guessing," Alina whispered. "He knows." Nico exhaled sharply. "This is insane." "Then it'll take 2 minutes to prove me wrong." Alina stood, squaring her shoulders. "I'm going to check on Mrs. Nguyen." "She's fine, White. The resident cleared her." "Then I'll confirm she's fine, and we'll all move on." Sarah's hand touched Alina's elbow, a gesture of solidarity that nearly undid her composure. "I'll come with you." They moved toward the double doors leading to the patient bays. Hunter's head turned, tracking their movement. And then he did something that made Alina's breath catch. He stood, took 3 deliberate steps forward, and positioned himself directly in front of the doors, his body a living barricade between the lobby and the treatment area. Not blocking their exit, blocking their delay. The message was unmistakable. Whatever was happening in room 11, it was happening now. Alina's hand went to her stethoscope, muscle memory overriding doubt. "Jamie, call the resident assigned to room 11. Ask when they last laid eyes on the patient." Jamie grabbed the phone. "Dr. Morrison's in bay 6 with the chest pain." "Then find out who's monitoring 11. The answer came back in seconds, and it landed like a stone in Alina's gut. No one. Room 11 was in the discharge holding pattern. Vital signs auto-monitored remotely. Staff coverage rotated to acute cases. Patricia Nguyen was stable, cleared, and completely alone. Hunter's low whine cut through the silence like a scalpel.
Marcus's radio crackled to life before anyone could move. "Security to main lobby. We've got a situation with an animal on premises. Need immediate removal." The voice belonged to Bill Hendricks, head of hospital security, a former corrections officer who treated protocol like gospel and exceptions like personal insults. His footsteps echoed down the corridor before Marcus could respond, heavy boots striking linoleum with military precision. "Copy that," Marcus said weakly, eyeing Hunter with obvious reluctance. "Marcus, wait!" Alina started, but Hendricks was already rounding the corner, flanked by 2 additional guards. He took in the scene with a single sweep, the dog, the frozen staff, the palpable tension, and his jaw set like concrete. "How long has this been going on?" demanded Hendricks. "Sir, the dog just—" "I don't care what the dog just did." Hendricks pulled a catch pole from his belt, the kind animal control used for aggressive strays. "Hospital policy is clear. No unauthorized animals in patient care areas. Liability exposure is unacceptable." Sarah stepped forward, her white coat and 20 years of seniority forming a shield. "Bill, we have reason to believe—" "Dr. Chen, with respect, I don't make medical decisions and you don't make security decisions." He nodded to his team. "Lopez, Garcia, on my count." Hunter's posture shifted. Not aggressive, but unmistakably firm, his feet planted wider, his center of gravity lowered. The message was clear: "You'll have to go through me." "Wait," Nico's voice cut through the standoff, surprising everyone, including himself. He stepped closer to Hendricks, pitching his voice low enough that only security could hear. "Bill, if we forcibly remove this animal and there's an incident, biting, injury, lawsuit, that's on your head. But if we let 2 nurses walk down that hallway and check on a patient who's already cleared for discharge, we verify everything's fine, and the dog leaves voluntarily." He paused. Which scenario protects the hospital better? Hendricks' eyes narrowed. "You're telling me you believe this dog knows something we don't?" "I'm telling you I believe in covering our asses." It was the language Hendricks understood. He glanced at his watch. 09:34. 6 minutes since the dog had entered. 6 minutes of productivity lost, staff distracted, protocols disrupted. Every second was documented, time-stamped, potentially reviewable by hospital administration or legal. 2 minutes, Hendricks said finally. "You check the patient, confirm she's stable, and this animal is removed, no exceptions." But 2 minutes was an eternity in emergency medicine, and everyone in that lobby knew it. Alina was already moving toward the doors when Hendricks raised a hand. "Hold on. Lopez, you accompany them. Visual confirmation, witness documentation. If there's nothing wrong with that patient, I want it on record." Lopez, a younger guard with kind eyes and a paramedic certification he'd never used, nodded and fell into step behind Alina and Sarah. Hunter watched them go, his body still blocking the doorway until they'd passed. Then, and only then, did he move aside. But he didn't sit, he paced. 3 steps forward towards the patient base, 3 steps back, forward, back. The rhythm of something caged, something fighting every instinct to burst through those doors and do the job humans were wasting time debating. Jamie's fingers trembled over her keyboard. Remote vitals for room 11 still reading normal. Pulse ox 96%, heart rate 76. "See?" Hendricks gestured. "The numbers don't lie." But Alina had learned that numbers could be the most deceptive truth of all. They told you what was happening in the moment the sensor recorded it. They didn't tell you what was coming in the next 60 seconds. They didn't smell the chemical changes in sweat or breath. They didn't hear the subtle shift in breathing pattern. They didn't see what a trained dog could see. The double doors swung shut behind them with a pneumatic sigh, and Hunter's pacing stopped. He sat facing those doors, every muscle coiled, every sense focused on what was happening in room 11. Waiting. Again. But this time, the waiting felt like drowning.
Room 11's curtain was pulled halfway, the fabric hanging limp in the recycled air. Through the gap, Alina could see Patricia Nguyen propped on the hospital bed, her phone in her hands, scrolling through messages with the glazed patience of someone who'd been waiting too long for paperwork. She looked fine. Alina's confidence wavered. Maybe Nico was right. Maybe this was just a lost dog, a strange coincidence, her own guilt projecting meaning onto random behavior. Maybe she was wasting everyone's time chasing ghosts because she couldn't save Mrs. Chen. Sarah pushed the curtain aside.
Mrs. Nguyen, I'm Dr. Chen, just checking in before your discharge. Patricia looked up, offering a tired smile. Oh, I'm good. Ready to get out of here, honestly. Just waiting on the paperwork. Any lingering symptoms? Throat tightness? Difficulty breathing? No, nothing. I feel totally normal now. She touched her arm where the hives had been. Even the itching stopped. Sarah moved closer, her trained eye scanning for details the monitor couldn't capture. Skin color good, respirations unlabored, speech clear, no visible distress. Alina felt Lopez shift behind her, probably already composing his report in his head. Patient visually stable, no acute distress noted, nursing staff verification complete at 0936. Mind if I listen to your lungs? Sarah asked, already reaching for her stethoscope. Sure, go ahead. Sarah pressed the diaphragm against Patricia's back. Deep breath for me. Patricia inhaled. Clear. No wheezing. No stridor. And again. Another breath. Still clear. Alina's stomach sank. They'd dragged 2 guards and a senior attending to check on a patient who was exactly as stable as the charts indicated. Hunter was just a dog. A well-trained dog, maybe, but still just... Then Patricia coughed, a small thing, barely worth noting, but Sarah's hand froze mid-movement. What? No, just a tickle. Patricia coughed again, covering her mouth. Sorry, dry throat from all the talking earlier with the paramedics. Sarah's eyes met Alina's. Something passed between them. Something that bypassed language and went straight to instinct. Mrs. Nguyen, I'm gonna keep you a bit longer, just as a precaution. But the doctor said... A soft alarm chimed. Patricia's pulse ox monitor flashed yellow, 92%. Not critical, not even alarming by most standards, but it had been 96% 2 minutes ago. Sarah's voice stayed calm, professional. Lopez, get me an anaphylaxis kit, now. Ma'am, she's already been treated for... Now, Lopez. He ran. Alina watched the monitor, 91%. Patricia's hand went to her throat, not clutching, just touching, as if confirming something she was beginning to feel, but couldn't yet name. Is something wrong? Patricia's voice had an edge now, fear creeping in. You're having a delayed reaction, Sarah said, her hands already moving with practiced efficiency. 89%. Back in the lobby, Hunter erupted. The sound cut through walls and doors and protocol, a bark so sharp, so urgent that it made everyone freeze. Not the warning rumble from before. This was alarm. This was crisis. Hendricks moved toward the doors. What the hell? But Hunter was already there, slamming his body against the double doors, clawing at the gap, trying to force himself through. When Hendricks reached for him, he spun, blocked the corridor with his entire body, and barked again. The message was unmistakable. No one leaves. No one delays. Every second matters. Marcus grabbed the door handle. Sir, something's wrong. Stand down, Marcus. Hunter's bark turned to a howl, primal and devastating. Jamie's hands went to her mouth. Nico started moving toward the sound without conscious decision. And then the code alarm shrieked from room 11. Hendricks' radio exploded with Sarah's voice. Code blue, room 11, anaphylaxis, patient crashing. I need the crash cart and epi, now. Hunter stopped howling. He sat, looked directly at Hendricks, vindicated.
Nico's hands moved on autopsy, muscle memory overriding the chaos in his head. He pushed the crash cart through the double doors, Lopez pulling it from the other side, wheels screaming against linoleum. Room 11 had transformed in seconds. Sarah had Patricia flat on the bed, airway positioned, one hand on her carotid checking for pulse. Alina was pulling medication vials, her movements sharp and efficient despite the tremor in her fingers. Patricia's lips were swollen, her face mottled red and white. Her eyes were wide with terror, pupils dilated. She couldn't speak, her airway was closing. Pulse ox 84% and dropping, Alina reported. Heart rate 118. Nico grabbed the epinephrine autoinjector, jabbed it into Patricia's thigh through her jeans. The click echoed like a gunshot. Come on, come on. Sarah had the bag valve mask ready. Airways compromised. If this doesn't work in 30 seconds, we're intubating. 15 seconds. Patricia's chest heaved, fighting for air that wouldn't come. 20 seconds. The monitor shrieked. Pulse ox 78%. 25 seconds. Nico watched the numbers, his brain running calculations he didn't want to complete. Biphasic anaphylaxis. The second wane hits harder than the first, often hours after initial treatment. Rare, less than 5% of cases, but catastrophic when it happens. And they'd cleared her. He'd cleared her, signed off on the discharge plan without a second thought, because the data said she was stable. The data had been wrong. No, the data had been incomplete. 30 seconds. Patricia's color started to shift. The modeling faded slightly. Her respirations, while still labored, found a rhythm. Pulse ox coming up, Alina breathed. 82%, 85%, 88%. Sarah kept the mask ready but didn't deploy it. Patricia, you're going to be okay. The medication is working. Just try to stay calm and breathe slowly. Nico stepped back, letting Sarah take over the reassurance while he grabbed Patricia's chart on the tablet. He scrolled back through the timeline, seeing it now with brutal clarity. Initial presentation, 0718, hives, mild throat swelling, treated with Benadryl and corticosteroids. Stabilization, 0815, symptoms resolved, vitals normal. Monitoring period, 0815 to 920. Everything looked perfect, textbook recovery. But there, buried in the vitals log, were the fluctuations Alina had noticed. Heart rate spikes at 0847 and 904, brief oxygen desaturation at 911, each one dismissed as transient, stress-related, clinically insignificant. Each one a warning sign they'd ignored. The dog walked in at 9:22, 8 minutes before Patricia's airway started closing. Nico's chest tightened. Medical school had taught him to trust data, to follow evidence, to let numbers guide decisions. 20 years in emergency medicine had reinforced it. Intuition was unreliable. Gut feelings got people killed. You followed protocol because protocol was built on aggregated evidence from thousands of cases. But protocol hadn't saved Patricia Nguyen. A dog had. He looked up to find Sarah watching him, her expression unreadable. "She's stable now," Sarah said quietly. "But if we'd sent her home..." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Alina was checking Patricia's vitals again, documenting every number with shaking hands. Lopez stood in the corner, radio silent, his face pale. Even he understood what had almost happened. How did he know? Nico heard himself ask. Sarah pulled off her gloves. Dogs can smell chemical changes humans can't detect. Histamine, cortisol, shifts in pH balance. Search and rescue dogs find people buried under rubble with scent. Diabetic alert dogs detect blood sugar crashes before monitors register them. She paused. We don't know what he smelled, but he knew something was wrong before our equipment did. Nico wanted to argue, wanted to cite studies, demand peer review, insist on reproducible results. But the evidence was lying in room 11, breathing steadily now because a German shepherd had refused to leave. He walked back to the lobby, his white coat feeling heavier than it had an hour ago. Hunter was still sitting by the doors, exactly where Hendricks had confined him. The dog's eyes tracked Nico's approach, patient and knowing. Nico crouched down slowly, the way Sarah had. Up close, he could see the intelligence in those dark eyes, the deliberate control in each muscle. You knew, Nico whispered. Hunter's tail moved once, acknowledgement without arrogance. And Nico felt something crack inside him, not breaking, but opening. The rigid certainty that had carried him through 2 decades of medicine, the belief that humans and machines held monopoly on diagnostic truth. He'd been wrong. The second wave hit at 9:41, 8 minutes after the first. Patricia had been stable, pulse ox holding at 94%, heart rate normalizing, Sarah had started the paperwork for ICU admission, standard protocol for biphasic anaphylaxis. Alina was setting up continuous monitoring. Everything was controlled, managed, under control. Then Patricia's hand went to her throat. Not the tentative touch from before. This was clawing, desperate, primal. "Can't," she gasped. "Can't breathe." The monitor screamed, pulse ox plummeting, 88%, 82%, 76%. "She's crashing," Alina's voice cracked. "Heart rate 142 and climbing." Sarah's head snapped up from the tablet. "Get me epi, now, and prepare for intubation." But Nico was already there, second dose of epinephrine in hand, jabbing it into Patricia's other thigh. "Come on, Patricia, stay with us." Patricia's eyes rolled back, her chest heaved once, twice, then stopped moving. "No pulse," Sarah said, fingers on Patricia's carotid. Starting compressions, she positioned her hands over Patricia's sternum and began the rhythm every medical professional knew by heart. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, the math of keeping someone alive. Alina grabbed the ambu bag, fitted the mask over Patricia's swollen face, squeezed air into lungs that didn't want to receive it. The tissue was so inflamed, so constricted, it was like forcing air through a crushed straw. "Get me the intubation kit," Nico barked at Lopez, who'd frozen in the doorway. "And page anesthesia, now." Lopez ran. The monitor flatlined, that single, sustained tone that meant everything and nothing. Patricia's body jerked with each compression, lifeless and ragdoll loose. "How long?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Alina checked the crash cart timer. 40 seconds since she stopped breathing. 40 seconds, an eternity, brain cells dying, organs starving. Nico prepped the laryngoscope, his hands moving with practiced precision, even as his mind raced through worst-case scenarios. If they couldn't get the tube in, if the swelling was too severe, they'd have to do an emergency cricothyroidomy, cut into her throat, thread a tube through the incision, medieval and brutal, and sometimes the only option. 1 minute, Alina said. Sarah kept compressions going, her shoulders burning, her breath coming in controlled bursts. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, the math of keeping someone alive. In the lobby, Hunter's howl cut through the walls again. Different this time, higher, more urgent, the sound of something breaking. Hendricks moved toward the patient area, his radio in hand. "What's happening in there?" Jamie's voice shook. "Code still active. They're doing CPR." Marcus stood beside Hunter, one hand hovering near the dog's back, not quite touching. "He knows," Marcus whispered. "Jesus Christ, he knows she's dying." Hunter's howl turned to sharp, staccato barks, alarm, desperation, the sound a dog makes when its person is in danger and it can't reach them. Nico positioned the laryngoscope blade, tilted Patricia's head back. "I need silence. Everyone quiet." The room fell silent except for the monitor's flatline and Sarah's rhythmic compressions. He could see the vocal cords, swollen and angry, barely a sliver of opening. The tube would have to thread through a space narrower than his pinky finger. "Stop compressions." Sarah pulled back. Nico guided the endotracheal tube forward, millimeter by millimeter, his entire world narrowing to that tiny window of anatomy. The tube caught, wouldn't advance. "Come on," he breathed. He adjusted the angle, tried again. The tube slid through. "I'm in." He inflated the cuff, secured the tube. "Alina, bag her." Alina attached the ambu bag and squeezed. Patricia's chest rose, fell, rose again. The monitor beeped once, then again, irregular but present. "We have a pulse," Sarah said, her voice tight with relief. "Pulse 64. Pulse ox began climbing, 68%, 74%, 81%. Patricia's eyelids fluttered. "Patricia," Nico leaned close, "you're intubated. Don't fight the tube. Let it breathe for you." Her eyes opened, unfocused and terrified, but alive. In the lobby, Hunter's barking stopped. He sat, perfectly still, listening to the silence that meant life instead of death.
Patricia Nguyen was wheeled to the ICU at 10:07, 45 minutes after a German shepherd had walked through the automatic doors and refused to leave. She was stable now, intubated, sedated, alive. The kind of alive that comes with ventilators and IV drips and hourly monitoring, but alive nonetheless. The lobby had emptied. The waiting room patients had been triaged and treated. The Monday morning chaos had resumed its normal rhythm, phones ringing and conversations overlapping, and the machinery of emergency medicine grinding forward. But the staff lounge was silent. Nico sat at the corner table, Patricia's complete chart spread across his tablet. Sarah occupied the chair across from him, her coffee untouched and going cold. Alina leaned against the counter, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something fragile together. Hendricks stood in the doorway, his catchpole conspicuously absent. "Walk me through it," Hendricks said finally, "from the beginning." Nico pulled up the timeline. Patricia came in at 07:18 with classic anaphylaxis symptoms, hives, throat swelling, difficulty breathing. We administered standard treatment, antihistamines, corticosteroids, epinephrine. She responded perfectly. By 08:15, she was asymptomatic. So what went wrong? Nothing went wrong with our treatment. We followed protocol exactly. Nico's jaw tightened. But biphasic anaphylaxis doesn't care about protocol. In rare cases, the immune system mounts a second attack hours after the initial reaction, sometimes stronger than the first. Sarah picked up the thread. The standard monitoring period is 4 hours for severe reactions. Patricia's initial presentation was moderate, so we observed for 90 minutes. Vitals were perfect, no red flags. By our clinical guidelines, she was safe for discharge. But she wasn't, Hendricks said. No, Nico zoomed in on the vital signs graph. These fluctuations here, heart rate spikes at 08:47 and 09:04, oxygen desaturation at 09:11, each one resolved within 2 minutes, too brief to trigger alarms, too subtle to warrant intervention. We documented them as stress-related variability. Alina's voice was quiet. Hunter walked in at 9:22. The room fell silent. Nico continued, forcing himself to say it out loud. 11 minutes before Patricia's airway started closing, 20 minutes before she coded. How? Hendricks asked. How did a dog know something our monitors didn't? Sarah set down her coffee. Dogs have approximately 300 million olfactory receptors. Humans have about 6 million. They can detect chemical changes in our bodies that are completely invisible to us. Shifts in blood sugar, hormones, stress chemicals, even the early stages of seizures or heart attacks. You're telling me he smelled it? Probably histamine. When anaphylaxis begins, the body floods with histamine and other inflammatory mediators. The dog likely detected the chemical signature of Patricia's immune system gearing up for the second wave before any physical symptoms manifested. Hendricks absorbed this, his expression unreadable. And the staring at the monitor? Pattern recognition. Search and rescue dogs are trained to alert their handlers to specific targets. Medical alert dogs learn to associate scent changes with danger. Hunter saw Patricia's room number on the board and fixated on it because that's where the scent was coming from. He was trying to tell us, Alina whispered. Nico nodded. For 19 minutes he was trying to tell us, and we wasted time arguing about liability and protocol while Patricia's window of treatment narrowed. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Hendricks shifted his weight. If you'd forcibly removed him, Patricia would be dead, Sarah said flatly. We would have sent her home at 9:30. She would have coded in her car or at home alone. No epi, no intubation, no chance. The truth settled over them like ash. Nico thought about his 20 years in medicine, all the certifications and continuing education and evidence-based protocols. He thought about the hubris of assuming that human intelligence and technology held the monopoly on diagnosis. He thought about how close they'd come to dismissing a warning they didn't understand simply because it came from a source they didn't respect. "Where is he now?" Nico asked. Hendricks checked his watch. "Still in the lobby. Won't leave. Marcus tried to coax him out with food. Dog won't budge." Alina pushed off the counter. "Maybe he's not done." The three of them exchanged glances. "All current patients are stable," Sarah said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. Nico stood. "Let's go find out what he knows that we don't."
Hunter was exactly where they'd left him, sitting by the double doors with the patience of something that had nowhere else to be. His posture had changed, though. The coiled tension was gone, replaced by a quiet exhaustion that made him look smaller somehow, more mortal. Marcus sat on the floor beside him, his security uniform rumpled, his radio silent. "He hasn't moved in 20 minutes, Marcus said, just sitting there, waiting." "For what?" Hendricks asked. As if in answer, the ICU doors opened, and a nurse emerged, walking briskly toward the supply closet. She smiled as she passed. "Mrs. Nguyen's responding well, breathing over the vent, neurologically intact. Dr. Chen says she'll probably extubate tomorrow." Hunter's tail moved, a single thump against the linoleum. Then he stood. Nico watched the transformation, the way Hunter's ears perked forward, his breathing shifted. The job was done, the confirmation received. Whatever invisible thread had tied him to this building, to Patricia Nguyen's fate, had released. Hunter walked toward the automatic doors, his gait steady but tired. His paws left faint prints on the polished floor, evidence that he'd been here, that this had happened, that everything had changed. "Wait," Alina said. The dog paused, turned his head. She crouched down, meeting his eyes one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on us." Hunter's expression didn't change, but something passed between them, understanding, recognition, the acknowledgement that sometimes trust requires a leap of faith from both sides. The automatic doors hissed open. Hunter walked through them into the bright morning sunlight, and nobody tried to stop him. They watched through the glass as he crossed the parking lot with purpose, moving between cars until he reached a silver pickup truck parked in the far corner. A man in his 60s stood beside it, arms crossed, worry etched into every line of his face. When he saw Hunter, his shoulders sagged with relief. He dropped to his knees, and the dog walked into his embrace, tail wagging now, the stoic discipline finally breaking into something more honest. Jamie pulled up the security footage from the security cameras, scrolling back. "There," she said, pointing at the screen. 0734. The truck pulls in, man gets out, dog follows. A man collapses near the entrance. It looks like a seizure. Bystanders help him, call 911. In the chaos, nobody notices the dog slipping away. The timestamp read 0734. Patricia Nguyen had been brought in by ambulance at 0717. "He waited," Sarah said softly. "His person had a medical emergency, got helped, and Hunter waited in the parking lot until he smelled something else, something worse. And came inside to tell us," Alina finished. They watched the man and dog climb into the truck. His hands shook as he started the engine, one hand resting on Hunter's head like an anchor. The truck pulled out of the lot, turned left onto the main road, and disappeared from view. Hendricks cleared his throat. "I'll update the incident report. Dog entered premises, alerted staff to medical emergency, prevented patient fatality, departed voluntarily, no property damage, no injuries, no liability concerns." "That's not what happened," Nico said. Hendricks met his eyes. "No, but it's what the lawyers need to hear." What actually happened couldn't fit in a report. What happened was that certainty had cracked, that protocol had shown its limits, that a German shepherd walked into Mercy General and reminded them that medicine wasn't more than monitors and algorithms. It was also instinct, intuition, and the humility to listen when warned. Alina returned to her medication cart, the one she'd been standing at when Hunter first arrived. The morning had aged her somehow, or maybe it had given her something back, the trust in her own observations, the courage to speak up when the data didn't match her instincts. She picked up her pen and resumed her charting, but her hand paused over the page. In neat handwriting, she added a note to Patricia Nguyen's file. Patient crisis detected and reported by service animal prior to symptom manifestation. Clinical presentation followed canine alert by approximately 11 minutes. Recommend review of current monitoring protocols for biphasic anaphylaxis. It wouldn't change hospital policy, not immediately, but it was a start. Sarah found Nico later in the hallway, both of them staring at the empty space where Hunter had sat for 19 critical minutes. "You going to tell anyone about this?" she asked. Who would believe it? Anyone who was here, anyone who saw. Nico was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I've been practicing emergency medicine for 20 years. I thought I'd seen everything, thought I knew how to read a room, trust the data, follow evidence." He paused. "Today, a dog taught me I was wrong." "Not wrong," Sarah corrected gently. "Incomplete." The distinction mattered. The automatic doors opened and closed throughout the day, admitting the sick and injured, the worried and the saved. But nobody who'd been there that morning would ever look at those doors the same way again. Because sometimes salvation doesn't announce itself with sirens and flashing lights. Sometimes it walks in quietly, on 4 legs, and waits for you to understand. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more interesting videos like this.